With S4HANA 2020, S4HANA Cloud 2008, SAP introduced a concept of called spaces and pages as an alternative to the groups concept in SAP Fiori. So in this video, we are going to we're going to discuss the concept of spaces and pages and how they help resolve some of the challenges that the users may have with the groups concept. Okay. And we will also try to understand the flow of how to build the spaces and pages. Okay. So some of the challenges that we have with the group concept is that, when the tiles from all the groups that are assigned to the user, when the users go to the Fiori Launchpad, all of those tiles and the groups, on the top and the tiles under those groups, they appear on one single Launchpad page. Okay. So basically your landing with Launchpad is your landing page for all the tiles from all the groups that are assigned to the user. Now the problem with this is a little issue with this one is that, if the user has too many apps and if your Fiori has been implemented for too many systems, like, you have apps coming from BW, you have for systems, you have apps, tiles coming from CRM systems, your HR system, your success factor system, whatever, right? So depending on how many, systems are involved, how many groups are involved, and how many tiles within those groups are assigned, the user could have, I would not say well, but could have some performance related issues to load the tiles when they bring up the Fiori Launchpad. So having a large volume of groups assigned and groups having large volume of tiles in them, it's possible that, user may find the loading of the tiles or apps a little bit slow. So system performance is impacted because of large volume of groups and tiles. Okay. And another issue with this large volume of groups and tiles is that, the Launchpad page looks very cluttered. Okay. And generally, if the page looks cluttered, right, the user may not have a good user experience for using Fiori. So that makes using Fiori very unfriendly for the user, right? And that is what we generally try to avoid using because of, the Fiori concept was to make the user experience more pleasant and friendly. So if the pages look cluttered, then, the user don't get that experience. And also with the large volume of tiles that you have, the users have on a single page, they will have to either scroll up and down the page to go, to find the app that they want to use, or they can, if they know what group that the app belongs to, then they can click on the group and go to that point. And that does not really help also in the case where, the group has too many tiles in itself. Or the user can search for the app and then get that app. So these are some of the challenges, some of the unfriendly issues that the users face with the group concept. So to overcome these challenges, right, and to make the user experience more friendly, SAP introduced a new concept called spaces and pages from S4HANA 2020 onwards. Okay. Now, with this, the new concept is you can use it along with the group concept. So group concept is still supported. You can go and still create groups and, use Fiori the way you use it today. Okay, you don't have to, force the users to use the pages, spaces and pages concept. You don't have to implement the spaces and pages concept. Okay, but it's a alternative that, a more user-friendly alternative that SAP has given in form of spaces and pages. So like I said, even if you decide to implement spaces and pages, the users can still continue to use the group concept if they don't want to switch over to groups and spaces and pages. Okay, so the choice to stay with the group is with the user themselves. Okay, and like SAP delivers some standard catalogs, technical catalogs, business roles. SAP also delivers standard pages and spaces also for you to use if you want to. Now, what are spaces and pages, right? So spaces and pages basically, if you see from the picture here, is basically a new Launchpad layout. Okay, the way your Fiori Launchpad screen is laid out today, the way it appears conceptually, that design format or the design concept has been changed with spaces and pages concept. On the surface, it looks the same. Okay, you basically, if you see this picture here, right, you see on the top, you have a space. And if you really look, you can say, oh, this looks like a group, right? And then below that, you see, you have a Launchpad screen where you see the tiles and all. So normally, when you look at it, when you see insights, you have outbound processing on the page, you think that's a group. But that is where the difference comes. Okay. So on the top, you have a space, and the tiles that are coming from the groups today, right? You can divide those tiles, you can put those tiles in something called as a page. So technically speaking, if you want to consolidate the concept of groups into pages and spaces, you can do that. You can create some space name depending on, what your design criteria will be. And then technically speaking, each group can become a page. Okay. Really speaking from a design standpoint. So a space will contain a page. Okay. And the page, if you really look, where your tiles appear is called a page. And then the page will contain the tiles basically. Okay. So what is a section? Section is part of a page which is used to divide the tiles or apps within a page. Okay. It's some your own or categorization of the tiles to be displayed on the single page. So and the sections will contain the tiles if you decide to use sections. Otherwise, the tiles, the apps are part of a page. Okay. Another thing is that when you create in a page, you will have at least one section. Okay, SAP forces you to define at least one section. But if you have too many apps on a page, then you have to make the look and feel, the layout of the page a little better. You can divide or separate the apps into different sections. Okay, but they're also part of this page. Okay. Now, how do we create spaces and pages? So what SAP has done is SAP has given you two new apps. Okay. One is for manage Launchpad spaces to manage the spaces. And there's another app you have, manage Launchpad pages to manage the pages. Okay. Create, change, edit, whatever you want to manage the spaces and pages. You have two different apps now. Now, space mode, when you use the space mode, it offers you flexibility for using the Launchpad layout. The page, the Launchpad screen, the landing page screen that you have, it offers a tremendous amount of flexibility how you want to use that for displaying your apps. Okay. So basically, with spaces and pages, you can have a new layout of your Launchpad, Fiori Launchpad. Now, the way it works is spaces are assigned to business roles. So you create a space and then assign it to the business role basically. Okay, like you create a group and assign it to the role. You do create a space and assign it to the role. And the spaces contain, pages are assigned to the users. The tiles are assigned to the users via spaces, which means pages are associated with spaces. Okay, we'll see the flow later. But that's what it is. and the pages contain your tiles, and the tiles can be divided into, on a single page, can be divided into multiple sections to make the look and feel more, spacious and user friendly. Okay. So what is a space? Okay. A space is a unit that holds one or pages together. Okay. So each page contains tiles. Okay. So that's basically what a space is. It's a launchpad layout design. Okay. You design the launchpad layout using a space. So basically, you can, selecting a page, you can display only the apps that are part of that page. Okay, so the layout of the Launchpad screen changes with this concept. Okay, you can have more than one space can be assigned to users, and a space can have multiple pages. Okay, and users can also switch between spaces. So you can have multiple spaces assigned to the users, and users, like, you switch groups to access the apps. You can switch pages, spaces and pages to access the apps, the users, that are assigned to the users. Okay, they can do that. Okay, so the pages are the ones that contain the tiles. Okay, so let's go and see what are pages. Like we just said, page is a part of space that contains groups, apps grouped into different sections. And like I said before, you don't have to create, sections, divide the apps into different sections, but you have the flexibility or the option to do that. Okay, so basically a page contains your tiles and the apps. And these are displayed in the main area. So what you know as a Launchpad, Fiori Launchpad, is basically a page now. Okay. Now, how do you manage or create pages? There is an app called Maintain Launchpad Pages app that SAP gives you to create and manage pages. Similarly, you will have a Maintain Launchpad Spaces to manage spaces also. Okay. Now, relation between pages and spaces would be many to many. Okay, so which means a page can be assigned to multiple spaces, and a space can contain more than one page. Okay. And this is basically your layout. So the concept of groups that you have, where you, on the top you have the groups, and below that you have the Launchpad page, where the apps appear. That concept has been divided into, the groups concept is now divided into a combination of space, the pages that are contained or assigned into that space, and the tiles and sections that are part of the page. Okay, so your group concept is now divided into these 4 elements. Okay, out of which your space, your page, and your sections, if at all you use sections, make up your group, what you know today as groups. Okay, now from a design standpoint, from a security standpoint, right? You create a business role, you have a business role that contains your groups. So now they'll contain space. Okay. And then business role also contains the catalogs. Like, today that thing doesn't not change. So the roles will contain the catalogs, and the catalogs will contain the tiles. Okay. So that concept also does not change. What changes from a role standpoint is that instead of assigning a group, you will assign a space now, if you fully implement spaces and pages. Okay, but if you want the user to continue to use groups also, you can create a space. You can also have a group. You can have it together. So how does the user switch between spaces and groups? We'll see. Okay, but technically, if you want to implement from a security standpoint, right? If you want to implement pages and spaces, the only change from a role standpoint is Instead of assigning a group, now you'll assign a space. And all this space pages are part of space. Sections are in the page. It's automatic, right? So this is the only difference now. So on the layout also, right? When you go and switch to spaces, on surface you won't see a big change. You will not feel the change. That this is a space. Whether you're using, and I mean talking from an end user standpoint, they will think they're still using the group concept, unless they see this little icon, the down pointing icon, and they see this menu structure, which is an indicator that they are using spaces and pages. Otherwise, if you without this arrow mark, if you ignore this arrow, downward pointing arrow, basically this layout looks like groups and pages concept only. Sorry, groups concept only. Okay. All right. So this is how this pages and spaces layout is. Okay. So now let's go to the next one. So what are the prerequisites, or what do we need to do to implement spaces and pages, right? So one of the things that you need to do is you need to activate these 4 OData services that you're seeing here. Okay, FDM underscore page underscore repository underscore cust underscore SRV. These are the 4 OData services that you need to activate. And this activation of these OData services can be done in two ways at least. Okay, one, in this task list, SAP underscore Fiori underscore foundation underscore S4. In this task list that you can activate, run using STC01 transaction, there is a task. Okay, Fiori, activate and configure FLP Fiori Launchpad for spaces and pages. You need to execute this task. Okay, when you execute this task, when that's the time of setting up Fiori, this is not selected by default. So if you decide to implement this concept, then this task also has to be run. Okay, in this particular task list, SAP Fiori Foundation S4. Okay, and when you run the task list, these 4 OData services, they get activated. Now, if you don't do that at the beginning, and then you decide to implement or want to implement spaces and pages, you can activate those OData services manually also. Okay, so manual activation of registration of OData services. The transaction code you have is /IWFND/maint_services. So you can use this transaction to activate this 4 OData services. So this is one of the requirements, okay, prerequisites, this OData service activation. Okay, these 4. Now, after that, you also have to create pages and spaces. You also need to have this copy of this particular role, SAP underscore FLP underscore admin, a copy of those roles assigned to you, because this role gives access to manage Launchpad Spaces app and manage Launchpad Pages app. Okay, so you need access to this to create a page spaces and pages or manage them. Okay, so to display any tile on Fiori Launchpad using pages and spaces, we need a business catalog. We need a catalog like we do now when we are using groups. We also need a role, right? The catalog contains the tiles, right? And the role is the one that gives access to the apps. Okay. And then the page that you create needs to be assigned to a space, and the space has to be assigned to the role. Okay. We'll see the flow in the next slide. Okay. In a minute. So prerequisites: 1, those 4 OData services have to be activated. Secondly, to manage spaces and pages, you need to have these 2 apps assigned to you, and these 2 apps are assigned with this particular role, SAP underscore FLP underscore admin. That's the role that contains the apps, but you can assign a copy of that role to whoever needs to manage spaces and pages. Okay. Now the next one is, how do we, once you create pages and spaces and then you assign the space to the users, how do they start using them? Okay. So especially this is important if if you want to continue to use the group concept. Okay, you want to give the flexibility for the users to either use groups or use spaces and pages. So there is a setting in the Launchpad. When the users go to the Fiori Launchpad, in their settings they will see the spaces option. Okay, so and we will see this in a demo. We'll toggle between groups and spaces in the demo. So this particular checkbox works as a toggle between groups and spaces. So when it is checked, the users will get into the space mode. And when this is unchecked, they go back to the groups mode. Okay, so SAP is not forcing you to, use pages and spaces. Okay, you can continue to use groups. But if you decide to implement, use spaces only, then SAP also gives you a spaces parameter. Okay, we're called a spaces _ enable _ user parameter using this transaction. So once you set that up, then in your system, spaces and pages will be enforced to use. Okay, so till this parameter spaces enable user is set, you can continue to use groups also. Okay, so this is a toggle between, this setting is a toggle between groups and spaces for the users. Okay. Now finally, from a security standpoint, what do we do, right? So what is the flow of steps that you need to follow? Okay. Now here I have said, create and group catalogs and groups. Imagine if it is a new role, you want to, you have creating everything from the beginning, right? It's a new implementation. Then you have to create the catalogs, and you need to have catalogs. You need to, if you want to use groups also, then you create groups also. If it is an existing implementation, roles, everything, then you don't need to create catalogs for this specifically. You can use whatever groups and catalogs you have. You can, you can use the use the roles that you have. Okay, if you want to design or move from the group concept to the spaces and pages concept, you can continue using whatever you have currently. Okay, if not, then you create a catalog and a group, then you create a role also. Okay, after that, the first thing that you do is, from a security standpoint, when you, assuming that, let's assume in a situation where it's a current implementation, you have roles, you have groups, and you have catalogs and everything. Okay, your Fiori is set up already. And now you want to move to pages and spaces and pages concept, right? So in that kind of a scenario, what you first do is you decide what design, space design, page design you want to go with, how you want to arrange your design your spaces and pages. After that is done, after you have designed, you have decided on the design of the layout, the Launchpad screen layout, you go and create the space first. Okay. And after that, the next step I recommend is you assign that space to the role, that should contain the apps from the catalogs in that role. Okay. So you create a space, then put that space in a role. Okay. Why? What is the advantage, or why I'm saying this? We will see in the demo. Okay. After the space is assigned to a role, then you start creating your pages as per your design. Okay, how many pages in a space, whatever design you go with, then you start creating the page. It could be one page, it could be multiple pages. You start creating the pages. And within the page, right? See, the tiles are not part of a space. Okay, the tiles are part, okay, of a page. So the moment you assign a space to the role, right, it helps you in creating the page. Because when you go to create a page and associate the page, okay, to the space, okay, then it becomes easy to build that page, okay, because the system will display the catalogs from that role, okay, and then from that you to build the page, the catalogs that show up because of that role space assignment, you pick and choose what apps, what tiles from which catalog from the role should be part of a page, of that particular page. Okay, so you create a page and then assign the apps and catalogs from the catalogs to that page, and you can divide those apps as in different sections also. Okay, and technically speaking, this page should come here. Okay, so it should be like this. Okay, so first you create a page, then when you create a page, then you need to assign, let me make the change here because this is incorrectly, the flow was incorrectly mentioned. So I'm going to say, here, let's say, I'm just copy paste this because it's too much to type. So assign page to space. So here it should be assign page to space. Okay, this should be the actual flow. So that was an incorrect flow I wrote. Okay, so you create a page, then you assign the page to the space, and then you assign the apps from the catalogs to the page. And that is how this layout will get created. Okay, so let's run through this again in a proper way. You create a space, then you assign the space to the role, because when you do that, it helps you to create the page. How does it help create the page? Then you create the page and then you associate the space to the page, and then because the space is assigned to the role, when you try to create the page, whatever catalogs are part of that role, they'll be displayed to you, and then you can use those catalogs to assign the tiles in that page. And if you want, you can divide those tiles, those apps into different sections. That's all you need to do. Okay. And every time you do something, it also prompts you to create assign a transport also. So we will see that in a demo in the next video. We'll go through these steps, okay, in sequence. All right. And then we will also see how do we toggle between spaces and groups also. Okay. So yeah, I hope you understood the concept of spaces and pages and how to, and at least theoretically for now, how to build spaces and pages. Okay. In the next video, we will go through the demo of creating spaces and pages and see how to use them.